let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there, Nation. Welcome to another edition of Commander CheapSkate. This is the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. I am Commander CheapSkate, and today we're starting off with our new series. Well, not our new series, rather. Our series, the Ninth Age Sagas. These are our battle reports for the Ninth Age. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, with the silvery host of Calidor of my Highborn Elves, versus Brother Grimm of the weekly hammering of Orcs and Goblins. Now, the reason why it's called the weekly hammering is because this kind of video is kind of interesting. I've been gone for a while on vacation, and so while I was gone, a new edition of Ninth Age came out, 1.2. I think it's 1.22 version, I think is what it's called, basically. Yeah, 1.22. So anyways, the idea was that they have new rules, so my buddies and I and my gaming group, we took some time, took a study of the rules, looked over the army books again, created new armies at the 5,000 point scale, because now point values are a little different, and we decided to do this. Well, while we were planning out our battles of what we are going to do for this battle report, we were watching and listening to Weekly Warhammer by Vince that he puts out every Wednesday. And one of the things that they brought up was that they had Lord Tremendous as well as ChiHammer as being guests in that battle report. One of the things they're talking about is like with the new Orcs and Goblins rule book, especially the new Ninth Age rules, was that nobody should ever take a savage feral orc warlord on a wyvern and using huge units of forest goblins. And my buddy Brother Grimm, who's just as ornery and as contrary as can be, was like, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it this time. So they decided to use those guys in this battle report. We're going to see exactly what happens when that happens, when he does that. So yeah. Anyways, 5,000 point battle between Highborn Elves and Orcs and Goblins. Let's get down with the army lists. Alright, so let's talk about House Laenel, the silvery host of Calidor. It is my 5,000 point Highborn Elves army. Let's go and start with my characters. First, we have Lord Tywin Laenel. He's a High Prince with a Highborn of the Flame honor. He's equipped with Heavy Armor Shield and the Spear of Blazing Dawn. Next comes Archmage Tytos Laenel. He is a mage who has gained up 3 learned spells. He is a Wizard Mastered with the Asphalt Skull and the Book of Melodies. He'll be using the Path of Cosmology on this one. And then Captain Tanis Laenel. He's a commander with Battle Standard Bearer, Fleet Officer honor, Shield, Halberd, Bow, Heavy Armor, Cloak of Stars, and the Banner of Discipline. For my core choices, we have House Laenel Guards, which are 23 Sea Guards with full command, Lord Tywin's Retinue, who is 10 Highborn Lancers with full command of the War Standard, and the Dawn Patrol, which are 5 aligned Ravers with bows. For my special choices, we have the Sad Flutes, which are 19 Sword Masters with full command of the Banner of Becalming, the Ever Wardens, which are 23 Flame Wardens with full command, and the Ever Queen's Rangers, which are 15 Lion Guards with full command and the Flaming Standard. And rounding out the rest of my army is my Peacekeepers. I have the Reigns of Calidor, which are 2 Sea Guard Reapers, and that brings my army up to 5,000 points. Alright, so let's talk about Brother Grimm's challenge accepted, the weekly hammering. That's his 5,000 point Orcs and Goblins army. First character is Brother Grimm, who's a feral orc warlord with a shield, axe of the Warpocalypse, plates of Tutek, as well as potion of swiftness, and he's riding a wyvern because the challenge has been laid down. Next comes Baron Zamidi. He's learned 3 extra spells. He's a Wizard Master with the Crown of Autocracy, as well as armed with the Fencer's Swords and the Talisman of Greater Shielding. For his core choices, he has the People Eaters, which are 39 feral orcs with full command. They're equipped with paired weapons and the Banner of Speed. The War Boys, which are 30 orc head bashers with full command and shields, and 40 Forest Goblins for armor full command, as well as throwing weapons. For his special choices, he has the Crimson Killers, who are 35 Iron Orcs with full command, and the Ironhide Icon. The Death Creepers, which are 12 Forest Goblin Raiders with full command, shields, light lance, and throwing weapons. And for his big and nasty choices, he has the Bad Brutta, which is basically his wyvern that his warlord rides on, and Undead Fred and the Loon, who's his great green idol, who is equipped with the Battle Center Bear upgrade. And that brings up my opponent's army to 5,000 points on this one. Alright, so let's go and talk about deployment. As you can see, we're fighting on our 4x6 tables. That's where we're fighting with long axis targets, so that's the round they rolled up. Luckily for me, that kind of helps benefit me in my deployment, so it's going to really help me out in this battle, in my opinion, with the way my troops are laid out. So because of that, as you can see here, both our armies are laid out against each other. Let's go now to the individual deployment areas. Alright, this is the deployment along the left-hand side for my Highborn Elves. As you can see on the left-hand side, I have Lord Tywin's Retinue. Those are my 10 Highborn Lancers. They're kind of stationed there to kind of sweep into the flank. And right next to them on the right-hand side, right between those 2 fields there, is where I decided to put my Sword Masters, my Sad Flutes, as well as my Tytos Laenel, who's my Archmage. And the reason why I put those guys there is because the way the battlefield's kind of laid out, it looks like there's only 2 main avenues of approach that my opponent, Brother Grimm, can come at me at. And that's one of the areas here is the left-hand side. So I decided to put myself between those 2 fields and those walls to kind of mess up his plans if he tries to attack me there, and then have my my Highborn Lancers on the left-hand side to flank him if they decide to charge at my Swordmasters. So yeah, that's pretty much the deployment on this side of the board. And here in the center next to that walled off field is my Sea Guard, my 23 Sea Guards with my sorry, not 23, 22 Sea Guards with both my General, who's Lord Tywin Lanell, as well as Captain Tanis Lanell, who's my Battle Standard Bearer, is where in there as well. So those guys are kind of occupying the center. They're using the walls as kind of like cover. Their idea is basically to act as a suppressive element. They're going to be shooting with their longbows. Plus, they got like a good core of infantry right there to help stand with close combat, all that jazz. We got Lord Tywin Lanell, who's also armed with his magic weapons, so that's really going to help him out. Plus, his High Ward on the flank is his entire unit magical attacks, which is always cool on that side as well. So I'm really excited about that part. And plus, Captain Tanis Lanell with his fleet offers upgrade, I could combat reform these guys anytime I need to. So that's also beneficial as well. On the right hand side there, we have my Ever Wardens. Those are my 24 massively huge 24 unit of what you call it, halberdier? Not my halberdiers. Sorry, not halberdiers. Sorry, my 24-man unit of flame wardens. Those guys are basically like they have the 4 ward and the heavy armor. Those guys are located there on the right hand side. Like I said before, my enemy really has only 2 real avenues of approach to come at me. That's either side of the fields, or they're in the middle. And so basically, I put my really strong unit there on the right hand side of my center, so that way they can occupy that area and have their flanks defended by both the field as well as the ruins there on the right hand side. So that's deployment there in the center. And the right hand side, as you can see there, I got my Ever Queen's Rangers. Those are my a Lion Guard there in the center. In front of them, I have the Dawn Patrol, which are my 5 Elaine Reavers, which are located right in front of there next to my deployment zone. And then right behind them, I have the Reigns of Caldor, which are 2 Bolt Throwers up in that forested area. So, like once again, I'm using the board edge as well as that ruins to protect my flanks on that side, so that way my opponent, all he has to do is come straight at me and not outmaneuver me. So that makes it my deployment for this side. Let's go and talk about Brother Grimm's deployment. Alright, let's go and talk about the Orcs and Goblins, which are a massive wall of just green flesh that's coming my way. Here on the left-hand side, starting off, you have his Death Creepers, which are his 12 Spider Rider Raiders. Originally, he was going to use those guys to try to go behind my deployment area and try to take out my Bolt Throwers. Unfortunately, though, the new scout rules state that you have to be within 18. You cannot be within 18 inches of your enemies and any enemy units. And so when we did the measuring, there was nowhere for him to put those guys. So unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to use them like he wanted to. So he had to stick them there on the left-hand side of his flank. Right next to him, you have the War Boys, which are his 30 Orc Bashers, are kind of put there in a column formation there, which looks kind of scary. And then right next to them, in that massively huge horde of 40 plus Orcs, Feral Orcs, you have his Feral Orcs armed with their paired weapons. They also got the Banner of Speed, which helps move them out. And then also include that rank, we also have Baron Zamidi, that's his Shaman for the Feral Orcs. That guy's armed with the Crown of Autocracy, so that allows him to get a +1 leadership. So basically, it gives him a little bit better control when it comes to their frenzy. And he also has the Fencer's Sword as well as the Talisman of Greater Shielding, so that unit's going to be pretty tough to deal with. And in the far back there, left-hand side there, you can see there's Bretta Grimm. He's hiding out behind that building because he's within shooting distance of my Bolt Throwers, so you put those guys behind that building so that way they don't get shot at, so his general's back there as well. And that guy's going to be a beast if he charges in. He gets D3 extra strength, D3 extra attacks, +1 toughness, all this stuff. It's just going to be bad if he manages to get to me, so that'd be kind of rough there. And on the right-hand side there, you had his Green Idol, Undead Friend and the Loon, and that makes up the left half of his deployment area. And to the right of Undead Fred and the Loon, you have that massive, huge block of Iron Orcs. Those guys are the Crimson Killers, and make up his far right-hand flank is his Goblins, his Forest Goblins. Those guys are called, oh, what did he call those Forest Goblins real quick? I forgot what he called those guys. Not the Raka Raka, not the War Boy. I forgot what he called them, but anyways, they're there. That's a huge, massive unit of poison-equipped Forest Goblins, and it's just going to be all kinds of bad for anybody who goes up against them. So yeah, that makes it deployment on this side. So with deployment over, go to top of turn number 1. Alright, so now we start off the top of turn number 1 after movement for the Highborn Elves. As you can see, I basically get to go first. Reason why is because when it came to my deployment, I just deployed my entire army to get the bonuses, so that way I can get the good turn first. As you can see, the first thing we do is I get Vanguard movement off for my Dawn Patrol, my Lean Reavers guys. I also move up within 8 inches of those, sorry, not 8 inches, within 12 inches of those units there that are on the other side there. My idea is I'm going to try to march block these guys and try to make maybe one of them try to charge me and try to basically get them out of action, put them out of action, kind of cause a traffic jam. Because as I said before, my opponent really has only 2 real main avenues of approach to approach my troops. So because of that, I'm going to try to mess up his troop ordering and his marching as much as I can with that part. So that's movement makeup on this side. Moving on the left-hand side of the board is pretty uneventful. All I do is realize I just pivot both my Swordmaster units, the Sad Flutes, as well as Lord Tywin's retinue, which is my Highborn Lancers. I kind of pivot them towards the centers. That way they're kind of pointing down the middle there, that runway between the hill as well as the ruins in the center of the board. So that way I could just bum rush anything that comes in. So that makes it moving on this side of the board. Alright, during my shooting phase, I open up with both of my repeating bolt throwers using multiple shot on those feral orcs. Managed to plink off 5 of those bad boys. That part's kind of cool. So a lot less, 5 more less orcs you got to deal with. And on the right-hand side, my Elite Reavers opened up on that massively huge unit of Forest Goblins, and I managed to only kill 2 of those guys. So that was kind of sad. But you know what? I'm just there just to annoy him, so that's what the purpose of my chaff is. And so far, I think it's working. So yeah. So because there's no close combat going on, and plus I'm all out of range for my magic phase, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins. Alright, moving here on the right-hand side is pretty uneventful for my opponent. Brother Grim tries to charge with his Forest Goblins at my Elite Reavers. He got upset that I just plinked out 2 of his guys. He goes to charge. I, of course, flee as a reaction, basically double back, going back to the ruins are. And since he failed his charge, he failed his leadership test. He carried the charge anyways. He just kind of scrambled up a few inches there. However, on the left of those guys, though, however, his Crimson Killers, as well as Undead Friend the Loon, they march up forward as quickly as they can up to the current positions they're located at. Undead Friend and the Loon are inside those ruins, while the Crimson Killers are kind of positioned on the left-hand side. So I gotta worry about here about my hand flank because my hope is that I can draw those Forest Goblins into the right hand side of those ruins, so that way they can get bottlenecked in that position. I can fight them with my Forest Rangers. Sorry, my Lion Rangers. And at the same time, force his Ironworks on the left-hand side of those rooms, so that way kind of bottleneck and take my Flame Wardens at the same time. So that's the plan there. As you can see on the left-hand side of the board for his movement phase, that entire tidal wave of green flesh is just marching forward as quickly as it can. On the left-hand side of Undead Friend of the Loon, you got that massively huge wave of people eaters. Those orcs of Rock are basically charging forward as quick as they can to try to get to me. And also then on the left-hand side, you have his unit of Head Bashers, the War Boys. They're kind of making up the flank there. And right there on the top of the hill there, or not at the top of the hill, coming down from the hill there, you also have his Spider Riders, and those guys are within 12 range of their throwing weapons. And that's going to be kind of scary because those guys get a lot of shots, and that's a lot of poison weapons coming out of those guys. So yeah, that pretty much makes up movement for this side. Alright, since there's no magic within range for him, we go directly to the shooting phase with the Orcs and Goblins. He aims with his throwing weapons from his Spider Riders, those Death Creepers, and they open up on my poor unit of Royal Highborn Lancers. And that's pretty rough because they get 2 shots apiece of those guys. They get to throw their weapons like that. Plus they're quick to fire, all kinds of craziness. So because that, he takes out 3 of my guys on that part, just from poison attacks alone. Just the sheer number of shots that guy got, which is actually quite frightening, and it actually kind of makes me afraid of those guys. So I definitely got to deal with those Spider Riders as soon as possible. So since nobody's engaged in close combat, that's the end of Orcs and Goblins turn number 1. So with that, we go to the top of turn 2. Alright, so with that, we start on the turn number 2 for the Highborn Elves. This is after movement. The first thing I do is I charge the Spider Riders with my Highborn Lancers. On that one, I actually got off kind of lucky on that part because my opponent did react to shoot as he did at the same time. Lucky for me, though, their ballistic skill isn't very good, so most of their shots just kind of went by the wayside. I didn't lose a single guy in that charge, so that just happened to be a miracle on that part. So now my Highborn Lancers are engaged with those Spider Riders, and we'll see what kind of pain we can bring on those guys. And over here on the right-hand side, sorry for the blurriness of the picture, but as you can see there, I just moved my Dawn Patrol guys up just outside of the range, of 12-inch range of those throwing weapons, and basically I'm just sitting there kind of baiting these guys and kind of charging at me. In the best possible worlds, the idea was either the Iron Orcs or those Goblins will come charging at me. I flee and they run right into those ruins and start taking dangerous terrain tests. That's the hope anyway. So yeah, that's what's happening over here on this side of the board. And as you can see here in the center of the board, I just have all my guys, my infantry units just kind of move up just a little bit and getting themselves ready for positions to take on whatever charges might be coming my way here. So I'm really, really afraid of that left-hand flank there with all those orc head bashers as well as feral orcs coming my way. Plus they got the Undead Friend of the Loon kind of bring up the middle there, and they get those bonuses from the Great Green Idol, so I got to worry about that part. So basically I'm just gearing up, getting ready to take out whatever I can. So with that over with, we go directly to the magic phase. In the magic phase, I bring the pain, which is actually kind of awesome. With the spell path that I decided to use for my Highborn Elves, I decided to use the Path of Cosmology. And the Path of Cosmology is, if you look at the rules, it's actually 2 different spell paths. You basically have 2 types of spells, which is the Cosmos spells, which are kind of like the positive buffing spells, and you have the Chaos spells, which are the damaging. So you have those 2 different spell paths, and you can alternate between the 2, which is kind of neat. However, if you cast a spell on the same path, it's actually more beneficial beneficial for you to stick with one path when you're casting spells, because you get a counter that basically reduces the cost of the next spell afterwards. So it's actually kind of nice. And when you combine it with the Book of Melodies, where I could reroll d6 in any portion of my spells, at least once per magic phase, it can give you a real big boost on that part. So the only problem I had is that I didn't roll very high for the magic pool dice that I could use on the spell. So as you can see here in the center unit there, those feral orcs, the Rocka there, I cast two spells on those guys. I first off use a spell called Mind Games, which gives them a -1 to the leadership, so I stuck on the Chaos path for that one. And because I got that spell off, I got the reduced cost in the next spell, which is Truth of Time, which gives them a negative d6 for any charge, flees, or pursue rolls that they have as well. Basically, they roll their d6s, they roll additional d6. I take away the highest one, and that's what they get relegated to. So it's a really interesting spell path. A lot of nuances with that part. So I thought that was kind of neat. So with Magic phase over, go directly to the shooting phase. In the shooting phase, I open up with my Sea Guard onto that massive unit of feral orcs, and I only get to kill 3 of those guys. That part was actually kind of sad. And the reason why is because I'm giving out the strength 3 attacks. Feral orcs are by default strength 4, so they're toughness 4, so it'd be kind of hard to kill with to begin with. And plus, when you throw that ward save and the distance I'm shooting at, and you're gonna get the result that you do. So, but anyways, I'll take it. 3 less savage orcs, feral orcs to worry about. So a little bit less to worry about. So that part's kind of nice. And on the right hand side, my line rangers open up on that unit of force goblins. We plink off another 4 of those guys and basically just kind of stick it to them, which is awesome as well. So my opponent was really frustrated about that part, but that was kind of cool. So yeah, 4 less goblins to worry about. However, the most important shooting of all of this was actually my 2 Reaver bow throwers. The Reigns of Calidor opened up with single shots onto that Feral Orc Warlord who was right behind that tree. He thought he could take cover behind the tree and get some cover saves from that part, but my opponent was severely wrong on that part. We could basically see him from all the way across the board, and we shot him, and we killed the poor guy. So, and it goes back to that weekly Warhammer thing. On the weekly Warhammer that took place this week, all 3 of them, Vince, Lord Tremendous, ChiHammer, they all said you should never bring a feral orc warlord on top of a wyvern. And my buddy Brother Grim was like, challenge accepted. Well, now we know why you don't do that, because those guys are going to get shot off the board if that happens. So, yeah, the poor guy lost his troops. So, yeah, General is now DRT. And to add insult to injury, because that warlord died, those orc-headed bastards had to take a panic check, and those guys, excuse me, those guys failed it. So because of they had to run back like 8 inches and right back to that chateau right there in the background. So that was hilarious. That entire left-hand flank is now falling apart because my 2 bow throwers managed to kill a feral orc, which we were warned you should never take in the first place. So that part was actually kind of cool. So yeah, now we know. Now we know what happens when you disobey the gods of Warhammer, basically. So sorry, the gods of Ninth Age. So yeah, now we know. In the close combat phase, we just butchered those spider riders. As you can see in this photo, we took out 9 of those guys out of a 12-man unit, so I didn't take any single losses on that part. So we got really, really lucky on that. So once again, because we just overwhelmingly caused damage, my opponent has to take a break test at this point. Brother Grimm, of course, loses break test. He flees, we pursue, we overrun, destroy him. So because of that, your Spider Rider unit is now KIA on that part. And so all we did now is took a quick combat reform, kind of pivot my guys over there to kind of like get ready to charge at those feral orcs in case those guys are feeling kind of on range, decide to come forward as fast as they can. So yeah, with those orc Ed Bashers in the background there, kind of fleeing away, it kind of relieved a lot of tension that was taking place here on the left-hand side. So there's not as much pressure going on anymore. So that was kind of nice. So with close combat over, that ends turn number 2 for the High Elves. Alright, that takes us to the top of turn 2 for the Orcs and Goblins. As you can see in this picture, we have a bunch of charges that failed for the Orcs and Goblins on this part, which is actually kind of nice. So, first of all, one of the things that we had taking place on the left-hand side there, the Savage Orcs, the Feral Orcs had to take a leadership test in order to see if they restrained from charging. They failed, and since they're within charging range, and the closest unit is my Highborn Lancers, they try to charge forward. They failed their charge at the same time, so now they're kind of out of position, which kind of brings them closer to my troops, which also allows my guys to charge those guys a lot easier if I'm ever feeling likely to do so. On the right hand side there, the Force Goblins try to charge into my lean Reavers. We fled as a reaction. He had to restrain to see if those guys don't charge or not. They do charge forward, and now they're kind of like at that awkward angle because that was the direction which my Lean Reavers were located at, and so my Lean Reavers just basically flee it out, and so now there's a traffic jam kind of taking place there on the left hand side, on the right hand side there. That forward approach that those Iron Orcs could have taken to go straight towards my Phoenix, my Flame Wardens, is now kind of partially partially blocked off, and they're kind of wedged between both the ruins on the left-hand side as well as their own goblin forces. At the same time, it kind of opens up the goblins' right flank to my rangers, my lion guard if I want to as well, which is also kind of opportunistic for me, which is kind of cool actually. So yeah, that takes place here on this side of the board. And in the back there, I forgot to mention this. Those Ed Basher orcs, they basically rally, so they're turning around now, and they're going to start slogging forward to go as quickly as they possibly can to catch for those of their peers. So yeah, that takes it on this side. Sorry about that part. In the magic phase, my opponent was using the path of shamanism. This one, he managed to get the totemic summon off. He got the big one off. So because of that, that totemic beast is now right there, right behind my troops, which is actually kind of scary because they're deployed right behind my Reigns of Kalador. So my Bolthors are now going to be in some serious trouble if I don't manage to get these guys turned around and start shooting at them pretty quickly, which is kind of scary. That totemic beast is no joke. It's got a random D3, D6 movement, immune to psychology. It's got a strength 3 breath weapon. It's got 3 wounds, toughness 5. All kinds of bad things are going to be coming my way if I don't take care of this guy pronto, because this thing is vicious. So with that being said, with magic over, there's no one close combat, there's no shooting for the Orcs and Goblins. We go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Highborn Elves. Alright, this is the photo of top of turn number 3 after move for the Highborn Elves. As you can see, I just charge everything forward as quickly as I can. On the left-hand side there, you can see I got my Highborn Lancers as well as my Swordmasters charging into the Feral Orcs. On the right-hand side, I have my Aline Reavers as well as my Lion Rangers, Lion Guard charging into the flanks of that unit of Forest Goblins as well. And as you can see in the bottom there, I kind of move up my Flame Wardens in order to help kind of mitigate the battle that my opponent's going to be sending my way down there in the center. Here's a close-up of the Feral Orcs as well as my 2 units kind of engaging in this part. So, like I said before, my last previous battle report where I used the 9th age for the Highborn Elves, the Highborn Elves are not as powerful as their 8th edition Warhammer counterparts used to be. So one of the things that I noticed that with Highborn Elves, you really can't engage any one big unit of enemies by itself anymore. You basically have to use the principles of mass to kind of help you out in that part. So you can see there I got my Lion Reavers, my Lord Tywin's Retinue, charging on the left-hand half of that unit. I also got my Swordmaster charging on the right-hand side of that unit, so that's going to be helping me out big time on this part. So that's a close-up on this side of the board. Here's the same kind of pictures taking place in the center. I use a combat reform. I use a reform movement for my Sea Guard, my House Lanel guards, as well as the general, as well as the battle center bear in that unit, because they realize that Undead Fred and Loon might be charging forward here pretty soon to come get me. So I got him to get ready for that part. So those guys in the center, because Undead Fred kind of just moved through that ruins, and I think he's gonna come charging at those guys. I'm gonna need the rank bonuses on that part. As you can see on the right hand side, I set up my unit of Phoenix Guard to kind of get in the way, so that way they can kind of charge in the flank if need be. So that makes a move for the center part of the board. And over here on the right-hand side of the board, you can see I have my Align River, my Dawn Patrol charging the front of those Forest Goblins, and I also have my Ever Queen's Rangers charging to the right-hand flank of those Forest Goblins as well. So the idea is, once again, is to get into pincer attack. My hope and my idea here is that I could destroy this unit of Night Goblins, the Forest Goblins, destroy them or cause them to break and flee, and that kind of sets up my troops to kind of surround and pound on that unit of Ironworks are coming my way. That was the idea anyway, so that makes a movement for this side. In the magic phase, once again, the amount of dice that I get from my magic dice pool is just really not all that great. I think I got like a 1 and a 3, I think, on the 2d6 on that part. So I only had 4 dice to use on that part, so that was kind of sad. However, I did use all my dice to give my troops a kind of boost up on this part. I'm using the Path of Cosmos this time. This time I'm using it as a benefit, as augment, rather than a negative like the Chaos version. So because I cast, what's that spell called? Oh, Unity and Divergence, and that gives my guys, my unit, a ward up save of +5, and that's really going to be coming in handy when I take on those feral orcs. So that pretty much makes magic phase. So magic phase done, we go directly to the shooting phase. In the shooting phase, my House Lanel Guard, my 23 Sea Guard, open up with their bows, not longbows, sorry. Their bows in that unit of Iron Orcs managed to blink off 4 of those guys in the process of doing that. So I was hoping for a lot more, but I was actually pretty lucky with the 4 that I managed to get. I was just rolling out of the box in that part because I had -2 to hit because we had moved, as well as shooting at long range. So I was surprised that about a third of my guys actually made through, and of that, about half of those shots made it and actually wound, which was actually kind of crazy in that part. So I was lucky to get those 4 Black Orcs, Iron Orcs. So no complaint out of the shooting for that part. And back in my back ranks, both the Reigns of Kalador turn around. They used a single shot bolt onto that newly summoned totemic beast. Managed to put that guy in the dirt as well, which is actually kind of helpful for me. So I'm kind of sad about that because that totemic beast took away my ability to use my bolt throwers to shoot at Undead Fred and the Loon. But you got to take what you can and try to save as much as you can, because that totemic beast in my black flanks was making me very, very nervous. In the close combat phase, it was absolutely brutal for my opponent. I actually got pretty lucky on this part. This is a classic example of skill versus attacks. That's basically what you're looking at here in this example. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the fights between those taking place between my Highborn Lancers as well as the Feral Orcs. We managed to kill two of the Feral Orcs for my Highborn Lancers. However, they only managed to kill one of my guys at the same time, so not as spectacular as I was hoping for. So that part was kind of lackluster. However, the main fight, in my opinion, took place when my Sadafoots took on those Feral Orcs as well. As you can see, I think I killed something like, let me see real quick. I think I killed like 10 Feral Orcs, and they managed to kill 3 of my guys, even with my 5 awards. So that was actually kind of cool in that part. So because of that, it ended up being a very devastating loss for my opponent. The amount of guys that he lost for my my Sadafoots had to basically make him auto break on that part. So that part was kind of sad for my opponent. As you can see in this picture, the Feral Orcs had an auto break on that part, so Brother Grimman took a roll his dice. He rolled like a 4 or a 5. It was like really, really low kind of score. And my Sad Foods like rolled like a 10 or 11, so because of that, they managed to catch up to them. So once again, that unit of Feral Orcs, as well as the Savage Orc that Bears Meat is located in that group as well, those guys are now all dead. And it was actually just kind of like a slaughter on that part, so I got really lucky off on that close combat there. As you can see from my post-combat pivot, basically I just reform my troops real quick. I have my 6 Highborn Lancers, the Lord Tywin's retinue, kind of facing down that huge unit of Orc Bashers coming our way. And as you can see, I have my Sad Foods kind of turned a little to the right to deal with Undead Fred here in the next turn or so. So yeah, that makes us combat on this side of the board. Combat on the right hand side was also slaughtered as well. I managed to kill off 4 of the Forest Goblins there with my Line Reavers with my Dawn Patrol, and my Everqueen's Rangers managed to plink off 8 of those guys. So because that ended up being a pretty one-handed sided victory for my guys, I only lost 1 Dawn Patrolman in the entire thing. So because of that, my opponent had to auto break on this one as well. As you can see in this picture, those forest goblins were forced to flee. They went to roll I think they rolled like an 8. I managed to roll a 9 with my Everqueen's Rangers. So because of that, we caught those guys and we managed to kill off all those forest goblins as well. And so at the end of that, we do a quick combat reform. We have a guy, my units kind of facing up that gets a huge unit of artworks are coming my way, and I prepare for the worst. So yeah, that makes up close combat for my rounds. So with that over, we go to the top of turn 3 for the Orcs and Goblins. Okay, this is the top of turn number 3 for the Orcs and Goblins after movement. As you can see here in this picture, he just charges everything that he has left over as well. So as you can see in the center there, Undead Fred charges right directly into my unit of Highborn Elves, my poor Sea Guard guys, so that part's going to be kind of rough there. And also on the right-hand side there, he originally tried to charge my Lean Reavers. My Lean Reavers fled as a result, and they fled through those ruins and ended up being on the other side there. But it was actually kind of a ruse for my opponent, because what he wanted to do was try to get rid of my Lean Reavers and decided to redirect his charge directly at my Everqueen's Ranger, my Lion Guard. And looking back, I should have just let him charge. That way I could have counter-charged and got him in the flank as well. So that part ended up being kind of brutal for me. So my opponent kind of outwitted me on that part. So as you can see on the right hand side, that huge unit of Iron Orcs is now charged directly into my unit of Lion Guards as well, so that's kind of rough there too. And on the left-hand side there, you can see the Ed Bashers are kind of marching as quickly as they can to try to deal with my guys here on the left-hand side. So with moving over, and since there's no magic or shooting anymore, we go directly to the combat phase. All right, as you can see in the combat phase, it just got really brutal here for my guys. He managed to plink off 7 of my Sea Guards, and I managed to put 2 wounds on him. And the only reason why I managed to put 2 wounds on him is because my general is inside this unit as well. So Lord Tywin is equipped with the Spear of Blazing Dawn, and that to me is like a really powerful magic item, because what happens is when you attack with this character, they have 1 strength equal to the 1 strength plus 1 over the toughness of the enemy as well. So that's kind of nice. It doesn't matter what kind of toughness your opponent has that he's attacking, so long as you're using with the Spear of Dawn, it gets you 1 over that guy. So that's really, really important. That part kind of really helped me out a lot on this part. So he's basically striking with a strength 9 attack against this guy all the time, which took away his innate defense ability, which really was really helpful in that part too. So I managed to put 2 wounds on that guy. However, between his stomps and his normal attacks, he managed to kill 7 of my of my Sea Guard, and even including the impact hits that was done when he charged into him. So I technically lost this fight. I actually lost by a point, but I managed to just kind of roll that out with my leadership test, and they managed to stay there as well. And I realized I made a tactical error here, because on the right hand side, I thought I had angled my Flame Wardens in such a way that they could charge in the flank of this guy of Undead Friend the Loon if he charged my Sea Guard, but now realizing that he's out of my arc of basically out of my charge arc, and so now I have to redeploy these guys. So that was kind of rough. Close combat on this right hand side was absolutely brutal for my opponent on this part. My poor opponent, I mean, he was rolling like a bunch of ones, twos, and threes on this part. So, like I said, this is an example of having a difference between having a lot of attacks versus having a high weapon skill on this part. So, once again, the Black Orcs, they attacked with paired weapons. That way, they get additional attacks in the front ranks, and plus, you guys are sporting attacks from the back. However, even though he's attacking with all those weapons, his rolls were just horrible in this part. So, because they only managed to kill three of my white lions on the, I'm sorry, not my white lions, three of my lion guards on the entire process, I, on the other hand, managed to kill eight of his Iron Orcs in the process. So with charges, ranks, and banners and everything else combined together, I actually beat him by 4 on that part. So Iron Orcs have a leadership of 8. So he minus the 4 for the difference. He had a leadership of 4. My opponent took his GD6. He rolled a 6 the first time. He got to reroll again because he was within 12 inches of the battle standard bearer coming from Undead Friend the Loon, and he rolled a 7 on that part. So these poor guys had 3 on that part. He took his 2d6, he rolled a respectable 8 on that part. I took my 2d6, I rolled a 10, and because of that, my line guards overran him and basically butchered that unit, which is pretty crazy if you think about that, and that aspect of that as well. So it was pretty rough for my opponent. It was pretty tough. So with combat, then we go to the top of turn number 4 for the Highborn Elves. This is after movement. As you can see here, I just start swarming all my guys in order to get ready to fight back. On the left-hand side, as you can see, I scooted back my unit of Highborn Lancers as well as my Swordmasters. I kind of pulled them back a little bit away from that advancing unit of Orcs coming their way, the Orc Ed Bashers, so that way that my opponent has to spend more time marching towards me and I can shoot him with my bolt throwers as those guys are doing so. Also, as you can see here, I also kind of pivoted my Phoenix Guard and kind of moved a little bit to the back a little bit so that way they're within charge distance for my next turn. I also might move my Lean Reavers to get them in the flank there and also maneuver my White Lions so that way they all can kind of swarm on Undead Fred and the Loon at that part. So the idea here is to swarm Undead Fred and the Loon, try to kill with numbers, and then shoot those Ed Bashers as they're marching across the field and eventually just take them out when they finally get within close combat. That was the plan anyways. It was after Moon. I was about to start shooting when my buddy Brother Grimm takes a look at the board and realizes like almost all of his army is killed except for 2 units of his, and that's where he basically just declares and surrenders, and he calls the game at this point. And as you can see here, basically there's nothing really much left. He just has Undead Fred as well as his unit of Ed Bashers as well. Everything else has been killed off the table. And at this point, my opponent was kind of demoralized because of the losses he took from those Iron Orcs as well. So it was kind of a rough battle, but you know, it was good times, always good fun. So it's always nice again to be back to do Ninth Age battle report. So that was kind of nice. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up for this one. So with this battle report done, it's time to move on to the after action report. All right, it is time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time we do battle. So this was a after action report for the ninth Saga battle report number 10 for Commander CheapSkate, the Silver Host of Kalador, with my Highborn Elves versus Brother Grimm of the weekly Warhammer and the Orcs and Goblins, and it being a victory for yours truly. So let's go ahead and talk about the after action report on this part a little bit. So first of all, this is the first time I was playing the new 1.22 version rules, and so it's kind of an interesting kind of take on that. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons about those new rule sets. Also, my buddy Brother Grimm took up the challenge set forth by the weekly Warhammer Weekly crew, Vince Venturella, ChiHammer, as well as Lord Tremendous, and they were right on some of the things that you shouldn't deal with Orcs and Goblins army. So it's kind of interesting on that part. So let's go and talk about what we learned from this battle. First of all, it's kind of interesting to see how they changed the point value system in this game. It was a little confusing at first, but you kind of get used to it. Basically, they just double the points of everything. That's pretty much what I saw. I'm not sure why they did it that way. The only way I could think of the reason why they did that was to move away from the stigma being associated with Games Workshop, maybe to kind of go on their own route. So that part I kind of understood. Also, it's kind of interesting how they divide up the percentages now between the different types of units that they have now within the different armies. However, I do feel like they did nerf the artillery magic and definitely the Orcs and Goblins a little bit in this update, especially for my buddy when they were fighting against them. So that part was kind of interesting. I thought they kind of made artillery a little bit weaker. They also took magic and made it a lot different on the. I don't know weaker necessarily, but maybe different on that part. So it's kind of interesting as well. First of all, that 18-inch restriction on scouting is a little overkill in my opinion. My opponent can use his Spider Rider like he usually does. The 12-inch I thought was kind of a generous part, so that way you could put your guys in the formations and get them in the kind of areas to fight fight at. But 18 inches is kind of extreme in my opinion. But it's basically like a souped-up Vanguard at that point. But they created it that way, and that's what we got to do it as. But I thought it was a little overkill. My opponent wasn't able to use his Spider Riders like he usually does on that part as well. And another thing, Spider Riders are also special choices in this army, which is actually kind of interesting. They used to be core at one point, but I guess not that way anymore. Also, the magic rules are extremely different. On the magic rules, I don't care for how they limited the magic to only the few paths that they did. I kind of liked it more when each army had their own different magic paths. Like for example, the lore of the big and the little gods, for orcs and goblins, for example, high magic as well as dark magic for other groups as well. I mean, it's neat that they combined some of them and then they kind of like took some of the different magic spells for different paths and kind of combined them into like the more simpler number that they have. But I think it kind of took away a little bit from the individuality of the different army lists. I mean, because everyone basically uses the same pool of spells now, which is kind of boring. But they did what they had to do, I guess. I guess like again, I guess they did to get themselves broken away from the GW stigma. So that's the only thing I could think of that part. Anyways, seeing that, for example, no Lord of the Big and Little Gods really hurt the Orcs and Goblins, in my opinion, because they had some pretty unique spells that was very centered around them, getting them to the battlefield quicker, getting them to use buffs for goblins and stuff like that. So without those spells, I thought they kind of hurt the Orcs and Goblins with that one as well. Same thing with size limitations of the Head Bashers. It was kind of interesting that they did that with those guys. I'm not sure why they made the changes. Maybe they thought they was overpowered or something, but or the case may be. I'm not sure why they did that. Because originally my buddy used to use a huge horde of head bashers to support his army, and then he gets like some other units to kind of help himself clear his flanks. But you know, that's just the way it came on that part. So as for the battle itself, waiting for my opponent to come to me really helped me out in this battle. We were fighting on the long axis of the table, so there's a lot more distance for him to get to cover, which basically helped me get my basically be able to whittle him down a little bit with long range fire as well as magic, and so that way when I did engage with him, I could kind of fight him on my own terms. So that part actually really helped me out. Killing the Feral Orc Warlord on a Wyvern was right on. That model is too big of a target, too easy to snipe away, especially if you're using Elven Bolt Throwers in that part. So that challenge is legit. So if so, Lord Tremendous, Vince, ChiHammer, you're watching this, you definitely know now that you actually were right on that part. We were so wrong. We were so wrong because killing that general basically won me this game. All right. Well, the reason why is because it caused a panic on those head bashers. Those head bashers had to run away. So basically, that gave me enough time to pick off the feral ghouls and deal with that problem, and then deal with the next problem with the head bashers on my terms, which really helped me out as well. That Lion Guard versus Iron Orc fight was also insane. I pulled off that one with a miracle. I'm not sure how that one really kind of worked out, but that really helped me on that part. I was able to defeat my opponent on that part as well. Like I said before, using mass, using multiple units with the Highborn Elves, and engaging enemy targets saved me this battle. Elves are too weak in terms of toughness in order to stand up to a fight too long. They're kind of like the Empire Sunstall that way. They have a very low toughness. They have high skills, a great number of attacks. They're very elite in that sense, but they're kind of like glass cannons. They could dish out a lot of damage, but they can't take any damage themselves. So because of that, you need to spread out your enemy's ability to inflict damage on you by using multiple units in that part. So once again, very valuable in that part as well. And then finally, the last thing I gotta say is my Lean Reavers are basically the illest. They managed to bog up the charges of that Forest Goblins, which stopped the Ironworks from charging my troops, which got me some time to charge those guys with my Lion Guard and basically get those guys taken care of as well. So redirecting charges is very useful, and I really liked how I used those Lean Reavers in this battle report. It really saved me a lot of headache and a lot of good. So once again, this was a good fight. It was a great opponent to fight against as always. Brother Grimm is always down for the challenge, which is always neat for him about that as well. We wanted to see if those guys for Weekly Warhammer were correct on that part, and you guys were. So the kudos to you guys as well. So once again, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, add your comments at the bottom of these battle reports. It's only going to make them better. You guys are awesome, and it's good to be back after my little vacay and get these battle reports cranked out again. So once again, you guys, take care of yourselves, have fun wargaming, and we will see you guys on the next one.